Welcome everybody. Let me just choose the right application to show here. Okay. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. I'm going to begin today by stating something that everyone listening to this webinar already knows very well, and that is that rescue volunteers by nature, it seems, tend to be very understated. We're not in this business for the glory, and the people who think that's what search and rescue is all about, they don't tend to last very long because there's not nearly enough glory to justify all the time and effort and inconvenience and money that we donate in order to save the lives of perfect strangers. And even within our teams, a lot goes on below the surface that never really gets recognized, and most people only see the tip of the iceberg, which is not really a problem because, again, that's really not our primary motivation. And the same thing goes for the Mountain Rescue Association. A lot goes on that most team members and individual MRA members are not highly aware of. And that is one of our we have several new top goals that we plan to improve on over the next 5 years and publicize and provide more of these benefits and kind of show them off. So with that in mind, today's webinar has 3 goals. First, I'll review the events at the MRA Winter Business Meeting held this past weekend in Salt Lake City. And I'll try to strike a balance between a quick summary but still providing plenty of details of what went on. Second, I'll try and persuade you or motivate or encourage you to participate in the MRA at the regional or national level, which happens to be also one of our new top priorities, bringing new people into the crowd and get you excited about it. And then also built in between all this, I'll also try and answer to some degree the frequent question, what does the MRA do for me, for individual teams and for the individual, no matter of what level you decide to participate at. So I'll mix those as we go along, and let's get started here. Okay, so the conference began actually before the conference with some pre-conference activities. On Friday, a lot of people met up and went skiing and took advantage of Utah's world-famous snow, although this year it's been like in the 70s down in the valleys almost, and so maybe didn't have quite that much powder, but we didn't have the avalanche danger, at least some small consolation, but people seemed to have a good time. And then there was some socializing at the hotel, and I wasn't there for either of these activities, but I'm sure you can guess what went on. Good skiing, lots of good stories, maybe some plotting about MRA initiatives and priorities. So before the conference actually began, on Saturday morning, my region had a region meeting over breakfast in the hotel. So I want to talk a little bit about getting involved in regions and what goes on there. We've got 8 regions in the MRA, and most MRA members only participate at that level, and most of them only participate doing the peer-reviewed accreditation system. And frankly, this is one of the most valuable things we do. I'll talk about this a little bit later. So that's one of our best services that we offer. But there's a lot more. During the reaccreditations, we train a little extra. We improve our team standards even a little bit higher because we want to impress the other teams. We want to pass the tests. And even if that was the only thing the MRA did, it would be a worthwhile organization. Also, there are opportunities to serve in leadership. One of the second thing we did in our regional meeting was we elected new leadership for the region. And there are lots of opportunities. Like, you can be in regional leadership and kind of do the minimum, make sure people get the reports in, and make sure the reaccreditations go smoothly. But there's lots of opportunities also to do more than that. And so as one of my goals here in this webinar is to persuade you to get involved, if this is something that interests you, here are a few of the things you could possibly do. Communication, for example, between the teams and between team members. That could happen with maybe your region has a newsletter, and you can look on MRA.org, by the way. You can see newsletters of lots of teams, and there's also a link on the regions page. At least one of our regions has region webpage as well for ideas, what to do there. Maybe you've got a blog, or maybe you have a social media Facebook account or something. And these are the kind of things where anybody can make a little contribution, make a post, write an article, something like that. It's not a long-term kind of thing, but just getting your feet wet, just getting a taste of writing something that people throughout the region are going to see, or and even beyond. It's kind of rewarding. It gives you a taste of what's going on and what's available for that. You can also do joint training and activities between teams, because along with the reaccreditations, one of the next most valuable, valuable things we do is mutual aid. Some regions, I know this happens a lot more than other regions, but when you're familiar with each other's skills, there's a lot more trust and enjoyment working together. Everything works a lot more smoothly. One of our members, Steve Petty up in Davis County, he told me about a thing he's planning to put on this summer where it's kind of like a survival training. It's kind of like an adventure race, but with pauses, so it's not a start to finish race, where first you hike up 5,000 feet on one day. So there are probably half the states in the country don't even have 5,000 feet of elevation. Then you camp, and dinner, there's a live chicken that you got to cook, and then somewhere else along the way there's a lake, and you've got to dive down 10 feet and grab something, pull it out, and dry off. And so it sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of good training going on, and he's planning to invite other teams to it. Our Weber County team also, every year, I think next week, in fact, they have a winter conference that they invite anybody to come to, and they do a great job with training there. So those are some of the things you can do at the region level. Okay, down to business. Let's talk about Saturday morning. The actual business meeting began, and we began with some introductions. Everyone around the room just said their name, where they're from, and what they do professionally. And then one of the first things we talked about is deepening the bench on the MRA, because there are a lot of people who've been here for many, many years, and it's great to see them, but it's also great to have new people come and see their enthusiasm as they start to get involved and realize what an exciting community it is to be on. So later on in today's presentation, I'll talk about some actual money that's coming that has now been directed to your region to help fund this, to help bring some people to the MRA participation at a national level. So we'll hope to see even more of that coming up soon. We'd also talked about ICAR. I'm going to come back to that because I've got a lot of things to say about it, including telling you why I spelled that with a C instead of a K. And then there's also the International Alpine Solidary Silver Plaque, an award given from Italy, and this is it's to Dan Horahan. It's the 43rd International Award of this, and he's only the second American to get this award. And it's a really very, very high honor. And of course, Dan has been deeply involved in the MRA for many years, so big congratulations to him. We talked briefly about director's insurance for the leaders of the MRA. The actual insurance, like for our events, will continue to be organized by like the host team, like when we have the spring conferences and such. We have a new MRA webmaster, Mike. Shoot, I just forgot his last name, but anyway, I've worked with him a couple times. Very responsive, does a great job. So that's great. Welcome. We've got a few new teams. I'll mention them later on. Coming on, Charlie Szymanski is moving back to Colorado. I'm excited to work with MRA Education again. So I'm sure we'll see more great things coming out of that system. Not that we haven't. We've been seeing a lot of great things with Brian Amberg in the meantime. And the grant committee spoke a little bit. Let me see my notes on this. Okay, Jeff Sharp talked about this. Rocky Henderson got us 3 Rock Exotica load cells, which are available to all the teams. If you want to do some testing, some pull testing, anything like that, we've also allocated some money for shipping to ship those out to you. And they're great little load cells, and you sync it up with your iPhone, and you just see all the data right there. And what happened during the break after these were kind of announced and shown off is people go and stick their thumbs in there and see how hard they could pull it apart. I think 44 pounds was the record for our strongest rescuer there. So if you happen to borrow these from the MRA, try and beat that. I'm sorry I didn't record who is the current organization winner about that. And one note was made that the Bluetooth signal only reaches about 6 feet, someone says. So as you plan your tests, make sure you've got your iPhone within that distance so we can work those well. Okay, let's talk about ICAR a little bit then. John Chang reported on this. He's been chairing that committee, and he pointed out that the MRA really has become the representative for the United States for ICAR. He said there's a very interesting story about how that came to be, but he didn't tell us that story, so I can't tell it to you now. We want to explore our return on investment for the money and everything we spend on ICAR. ICAR is an awesome organization. It's very important. I'll talk about that more in a second. But we just want to make sure that we're getting our full value, getting reports back. So all this great information that people test from around the world, that it trickles down to the individual teams and really helps us as much as possible. We originally had 2-year terms for our representatives to ICAR, and we changed that to 4-year because, well, for several reasons, but for one reason is really getting there and getting to know people and making those connections and being trusted is an important part of it. So suggested change that to 4 years. We had the joint MRA ICAR conference at Lake Tahoe. It was extremely successful. In the 63 years of ICAR's existence, this is the first time it's ever been held in the United States. So big kudos to everyone. The whole conference cost was $274,000. And we actually made $10,000 profit, which surprised a lot of the ICAR people because apparently they never really make money. So we have a lot of people there in Douglas County and the other ones who are helping who did a tremendous job on that. It really gives us a strong voice in the international body having this kind of stuff going on. So technology testing, this is one of the really important things that ICAR does, because one example someone mentioned was the Avalanche phone app, where there were, I'm sure, a lot of snowboarders and backcountry skiers expecting to go out there with their phones, and when their buddy gets buried by an avalanche, not carrying a transceiver because you can just use your phone. Well, that sounds kind of dubious to us, and so that's just one of the, maybe we save some lives by testing that and putting out a statement that says this is not really quite as adequate as you might think it would be. I don't know the specific details about that, so I hope I got that right. Rick Lawrence, as you know, Topograph Media has done a great job for years of filming the ICAR conferences and putting out that video for everyone to see later on. He's attended 12 of the last 14 conferences, and so we appreciate that. And this is why I spelled it ICAR instead of IKAR. English has now become the official language of the International Commission for Alpine Rescue. And so we've got the spelling change, and some people commented, and it doesn't sound too far out to believe, that part of the reason may well be because of the MRA, because we do such a great job getting reports in, a lot of participation, a lot of contribution, and so, bringing it to the United States and having a great experience here, who knows, all these things may have contributed to that. Another request John made for our ICAR committee is when we add people to our own medical committee or to the ICAR, who will represent us at the ICAR Medical Commission, that these individuals be screened by our medical committee just to make sure they're top-notch doctors and all that kind of stuff. So they'll be screened by them and then still decided by the MRA. It was mentioned that we would like to explore funding, get some grants or something, people to help pay for our support of the ICAR and sending our delegates there and everything. Monty made a comment like, we'll always have someone to go present there because, hey, we're paying for you. It's a free European vacation, and there was some discussion of whether it's kind of a closed system, like the good old boys get to go there. But there was a lot of other people who then expressed the opinion like, European vacation is not really the motivation for a lot of people. If it is, and you go present something great, send us a report, that's fine. I don't care. But and B, if someone really wants to step up, that we are open to volunteers. That's one thing I really appreciate about the MRA is just that. If you want to contribute something, like this whole webinar committee, just come up with an idea and implement it. We'll support you. And so I think it's a great place to get involved and have a good volunteer experience. We talked a little bit about replacing delegates who do not send us reports, and I'll mention a little bit more about that when I talk about Sunday when we actually voted on these things. And then it was also mentioned that apparently the European, I'm not sure this is right for the acronym, but European Airline Safety Association perhaps, they are wanting to set some short haul standards for helicopter rescue. For example, which harnesses are approved to be used in that situation. And ICAR kind of wants to quash that because if somebody's out in the backcountry wearing some harness, we don't want to say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't rescue you, you have the wrong harness, or go through that hassle. And MRA, we have an interest in this also because if we can win that battle in Europe, then we probably won't have to fight it here on our own shores. So, okay, let's move on then. That was the morning meeting. And then for lunch, we had a meeting with just the region chairs over lunch. And some of the things we talked about were, like I asked them, I said, I'm doing this webinar, part of it's going to be about volunteering, getting involved, so what do you need? What do you want for your region? What would be good support? And we had some discussion about social media, for example, whether it's blogs or newsletters or Facebook page and contributing, because if we can spread that load kind of wide if people contribute, then we can get some good content and those things can really work. But then someone made a really good comment that even if we do these media, that a lot of people don't necessarily look at them and read them. So here I want to put out a plea. Please encourage your teammates to look at the Meridian as well, the MRA Meridian and these other things, because there's a lot of good information in there, and it can increase your sense of community and kind of what's going on and make you a better rescuer. But it's so easy to skip because you feel like, oh, I'll just focus all my energies on actually rescuing people and training in our local meetings. But if you encourage people to put a few minutes in and skim through and get some of that knowledge out there, then that's when you start discovering the value, because there's a lot of value there. And if you don't go out and pick it up, then really you only have yourself to blame for not knowing about that. We're going to create a region chair email group, which will facilitate communication between us chairs, and that'll help us share these ideas even better. And one example of a good idea that someone told me about, sorry, I forget who, is a regional training calendar. They used what was the name of the software? Sorry, I forget. Anyway, a certain software, and all the teams could log in and post all their training events and things. And that kind of creates the really smooth opportunity to create, joint trainings or talk about whether people from one team are invited to another team's training, which I think is a great idea. And really what we need to make that happen usually is just communication, so those who are interested and able can take advantage of it. We also talked a little bit about MRA's value, and I got some really good stories, a couple of them, for example, about mutual assist, like I mentioned earlier. There's one in Colorado where there was several agencies, at least 3 search and rescue teams I heard about in the story, and they were sent up on this mountain, and one of the teams there was not MRA. And so the incident commander, or whoever, our region chair, the region chair who was talking about it, mentioned that he was talking to this non-MRA team, and he gave all these instructions. Okay, I need to have this and that and the other. I need to do this, that, and the other. And he said, if that had been an MRA team, I could have said it in one sentence. I need a team up there, and he would have just known that they were ready and knew what they were doing and able that they would cooperate and work really well. A story I heard a year ago was from California. I think this was Marin County, but I'm not positive, and that is the search and rescue team went down to, I believe, Yosemite for a mutual assist, and someone there, probably one of the state SAR coordinators, looked at him and said, are you an MRA team? They said no, and they said, well, go become an MRA team, because in California especially, it's such a well-known status, like this is the people we trust. We know they're peer-reviewed, we know they're excellent teams, and so that's what it takes to be that. So there's a few statements that maybe some people didn't know about how valuable and how respected the MRA is. I think it's something you can be proud of, whether you're involved at these other levels or not. That peer review really goes a long way, and I'll have a few more comments about that toward the end of today's presentation. So, and then networking and sharing ideas amongst teams about how we do things differently, because there are a lot of different kind of good ideas floating around. That's one of the values we talked about. All right, so then we came back to our meeting and we talked some more. And by the way, teamup.com, that was the calendar sharing software that I mentioned. So as we came back, the first thing we talked about was there was a little bit of discussion of reimbursing regions for recertification, for reaccreditation costs. And what we kind of quickly boiled that down to was when we bring in evaluators from outside the region, like Alaska has a situation right now where, well, I won't go into all the details, but we're going to need to bring in a couple evaluators there. Then the national organization, probably help with some of those cost reimbursements. Otherwise, it's taken care of within the regions. Talks a little bit about region funding and dues. That's a topic that comes up at least every other year, if not every year. And one of the really good ideas that didn't garner enough enthusiasm to catch on, but which I really like, and so I'm going to mention here in case other people like it, is we pay $15 per person, with the maximum cap for our dues, right? Well, if we took like $1 of that and send it to the region's budget, several things would happen. First off, there's one way that member teams, through the region are going to get some value, more added value of being in the MRA. Second, the regions, I'm sure, will come up with some really good ideas for how to spend and invest that money and create even more good programs. So anyway, I like the idea, and especially with the fundraising that Rocky Henderson is doing such a great job of, I think we can afford to consider that. So hope you'll agree and talk about it, and love to see that happen. Our SAR conference 2015 will be in Estes Park, Colorado from June 4 to 7, and we heard some details about that. They're inviting the Colorado Search and Rescue Board, NASAR are also invited. They'll have a zip line and high ropes course on Thursday for some extra cost. I don't know what that is. Friday and Saturday are training days. Different classes have 2- and 4-hour class slots, so there may be some time in between some of those for networking and socializing. We've got a barbecue and a banquet on Friday and Saturday nights. Instructors and volunteers, if you go ahead and register, and then afterward, I think they'll give you a 25% rebate on your registration. Dogs are allowed, but you have to have them leashed. And the whole cost, including food and lodging, the registration I think is $130, which is great, and with food and lodging, I think they're aiming for about $500. So I'm sure they're going to have a lot of great things. It's a beautiful area. I encourage you to check it out. That's a great way to get involved with the MRA and get your first taste. And I'm going to tell you about some scholarships in a little bit, which may help convince you or your team to send some new people to that. For your first meeting, you probably don't want to go to the Winter Business Meeting. I mean, it's fun to get involved and knowledgeable about everything, but it's not nearly as fun, and you don't have the training and stuff of the spring conference. So that's a great place to start. Mission reporting. We got a little bit of information about from Esri about, and by the way, our next webinar next month will be on this as well, because John's getting a lot of questions and everyone's really excited about it. It's really beautiful, the capacity to show dots on the little calendar right on your homepage to show where all your rescues are and everything like that. And they've got about a little over 1,213 missions from last year recorded, but surely that's hundreds of missions short that have not been added there. So if your team has not yet added your missions on there, please do. It's really quick. John said, he told a story about someone who went in about 20 minutes, they entered their whole year of about 100 missions. So it's quick, it's easy, maybe you've been planning on it, just stick it on your calendar and get around to it and get it done. That'd be great. And to check this stuff out, by the way, just go to arcgis.com, upper right, click login, and if you don't know your login information, contact John or Monty Bell, and they can help you with that so you can log in and take advantage of this really cool resource, and of course attend next month's webinar as well. Rick talked a little bit about capturing our regional history. Now, for years, we've had this agreement with the University of Washington where they've been archiving a lot of our data, and we have a few films there of some of our very big first, MRA founders, and so so if you're interested in pointing at a video camera at someone who's been on your team for a long time and part of the history, for example, or one of the founders or whatever you can do, then take a look at those kind of for the format, and when you record those, let Rick know, and he'll give you all the information about how to get that hosted on the University of Washington webpage, which would be pretty cool. And time's ticking. And then we come back to the Education Committee, and Brian Ember gave a report. One thing he said that we've been talking about is, one thing we want to do is create lots of bite-sized information. So our Facebook page is a great example. If you're not like that, please do. And it's just quick information, get it out to the public, so it doesn't take a lot of time for people who don't want to spend a lot of time. And so that's one thing we're keeping in mind as we move forward. And as you add things to your Facebook page or your team's Facebook page, remember to tag it with MRA, because that cross-links it back and forth between us and helps get you traffic, more traffic, and us as well. Also remember to tag our sponsors. If you have something from Petzl, for example, and it's really shown kind of prominently in some picture, tag Petzl there. They'd appreciate that, and we appreciate them so much too for their support. So that would be cool. And then he mentioned the webinars and he says it brings a lot of traffic to the site, just slam dunk success, gets the MRA's name out there. Someone commented on how, for example, if you have not watched the suicide webinar from last fall that Tom Wood put on, it's fantastic. You'll be surprised how much quality information is in that. And someone commented how just the fact that we treated it so openly and really, it was a little bit raw, just honestly like that, just crucial information, they felt like it just really represented the MRA very well, made a very good impression about what kind of organization we are. A few more details on that. We've been having up to about 100 people attend, so our attendance has been expanding a lot into last fall. And what else do I have to say about that? Oh yes, initially I started this committee and this whole program because I wanted to reach out to the individual team members, the MRA members who don't participate on a regional or national level, to give them more of a connection, more of a value from MRA. But what I see is Jessica has sent me all of the reports about who attends it's much more than that. So please tell your team members about these and encourage them to attend these things. But we have commanders from every continent in the world. We have people from everywhere who are getting exposed to this really high quality information, and not only is that going to instantly trickle down to their team and help their rescue operations, but it's also a great representation for the MRA to really influential, important people out there. So thanks to all of you, wherever you are, for attending. All right. Oh, and I should also say thanks to PMI for your great support, as I always say. I'll mention that again in a minute. And I should also mention on, oh yeah, if you have a topic that you would like to present, that you'd like to volunteer for our webinar committee, just get a hold of me at that email address or just respond to me sometime on the lister. And then we also have, under the Education Committee, one of the great things that Brian has put together is our Moodle courses. And we've got the helicopter course finished, and we've had 14,000 users sign up to use that training. Now, on the other hand, we've only had 57 people who've actually finished it, passed it, and that may be because they logged in and realized this is not just a little flimsy surface treatment. This is an in-depth kind of thing that takes a couple hours. But Washington State has begun to use this as as an official certification. So we're doing great things. We also have backcountry safety training that's almost ready, and I'll talk a little bit more about this whole system in a minute, because we were paying $5,000 a year for a license and for training and for hosting and a lot of things, and some of us thought maybe we could do a little better with that. So I'll tell you what we do with that in a minute. All right, let's talk about fundraising. Here's a presentation by Rocky Henderson, who has been doing a great job. 4 years ago, we decided to get serious about fundraising and do it a little more professionally. So we hired Jennifer, who is like an executive assistant or something. She schedules appointments for Rocky and Dave, like they go to the outdoor retailer show, and they've just got appointments where they go in and meet with these people. And you can be a sponsor of the MRA for as little as $500 a year to be a friend of the MRA. So they've been signing up some great sponsors. We target high-end, top-end, quality outdoor manufacturers, and people are kind of associated with us, and they're doing a great job. Maybe the story I kind of liked best about this one was how we got Benchmade Knives recently as our platinum sponsor, so our top-level sponsor. And it turns out that we rescued the CEO's uncle on Mount Hood, and Rocky was on that rescue, so I'm sure that helped with the connection there, but they just said, hey, we want to support what you do. Now they're even going to make an official MRA knife. So at the conference, Rocky asked for a few beta testers to get some knives and stuff. I'm sure he got some enthusiastic volunteers right away, but anyway, they're super high quality knives, so that's great. Got a bunch of silver sponsors lined up and some bronze ones, and one of our newest ones is Petzl. I know it's new partly because it wasn't on the webpage when I grabbed these screenshots, and it turns out that Petzl, based in Utah, just moved their operations across the street from our hotel where we meet for our winter meeting. So there's a chance that we'll be using their facility. You know, we'll see. It's just across the street and down the block for some of our meetings. There's one of their meeting rooms they do. And like this, they've also got a 60-foot climbing wall where they plan to hold competitions and some things like that. So there's maybe some activities that may be available to us next year. I'm not promising, of course, but I'd like to see it. And now I would like to announce a special surprise that almost nobody really knows about, and that is our latest sponsor, our brand new one, at the President's Partner level, and that is for critical support of the MRA's mission in saving lives through rescue and mountain safety education. And this award goes to our web partner for these webinars, PMI. Our President Dave Clark and Rocky, really excited about and really appreciative of the support you give for these webinars and the success they've had in reaching out to the wider rescue world. So big thanks, Ken, Jessica, Tom, and PMI in general. Everybody please visit them at pmirope.com as soon as the webinar ends. And anyway, so Jessica, I told you I had a surprise. That's it, and thanks. I really appreciate what you do. All right, moving on to Sunday morning. Comes time to actually have the votes on, oh, actually, sorry, this is not yet Sunday morning. This is, we decided, so 6 years ago, we had our strategic planning initiative, and we outlined our top priorities that we wanted to focus on as an organization. And I'll tell you, before then, I'd been involved for a few years before that meeting, and what I saw and what we kind of talked about was we just weren't getting a lot of traction, getting a lot of things done. But boy, I'll tell you, ever since we did that, we are so much more efficient, so much more effective. I think we're improving all the time. We're doing great things. I'm proud to be a member of this organization, the things we do. So, but after 5 years, it's time to do it again. So we came up with a big list of, we kind of brainstormed a big list of things we thought were important to focus on. And then everybody got about 15 or so blue dots. And we walked around, we could put 5 dots on our first choice and 4 on our second, etc. And the way that added up, oh look, how convenient, is the same order that I listed them here. So training and education came out on top, and then the next 6 really quite close. So online presence, internal marketing, safety, mentorship, and what that means is bringing new blood into the MRA, bringing, helping people out get involved, get them excited about it like we are, because I think everybody who's there, you know, we love participating here. I'll talk a little bit more about why toward the end of the presentation here. Spring conference, just making sure it's the best it can possibly be. And then statistics, you know, getting our information into the ArcGIS platform so we can really know so much more about who gets hurt and when and where, and your teams can show off how many rescues they do and all those great things. So there are new priorities, and then some of these things we already have chairs for, and some of them will be appointing new chairs. So look at this list and just realize there is a wealth of opportunity. If you want to contribute something great to the MRA, do something rewarding, this list shows you a lot of ideas. So if you want to be a committee chair, great, get in touch with Dave. If you want to just be on a committee and just pitch in when you can, then that's also fantastic. And that includes my committee, webinar committee, by the way. I wouldn't mind having a few more people on here, as well as having some more presenters. So let me know if you're interested. I'd appreciate it. And on that note, let me share a few quotes from some of our great leaders from the past and present. Here's one from John Kennedy. Ask not what the MRA can do for you, ask what you could do for the MRA. I didn't look that up to make sure I got it word for word, but it was something like that. And I'll tell you, when you, it's like Dave says, actually I'm going to quote him on this later, you get out of this what you put in. And if you volunteer a little bit, you're going to get a little bit more enjoyment and appreciation out of it. And if you put in a lot, you know, you're going to find yourself enthusiastic about it. It's a valuable service that we do here. Here's another one from Herbert Hoover, a committee assignment in every team. So I would love all you participants who, even if you're already participating in the MRA, if you're not on some committee or other, I'd encourage you to pick one that you think you like and contact the committee chair and just contribute whatever you can, and maybe keep them moving. Say, hey, I thought we were going to do this by March. Let's get it done, and that'll help us make us an even better organization. The original 13 colonies, no dues without representation. So we'd love to have you join the organization. And then here's from more recently, Barack Obama, yes, you can. Or was it yes, we can? Anyway, there's another pitch for you to join us. Okay, so now we come to Sunday morning, to the actual business meeting where we actually make the decisions. We began with a roll call of everyone who's present or who have their proxies assigned. Tell the teams to vote for them. And then we had a really cool award. You remember at the beginning of this webinar I talked about how we rescuers, we don't do it for the recognition. We don't blow our own horns. We just love to serve. We love to help out. We love to make a difference. And you know, we've discovered in the last 10 or 15 years, science has discovered that that is one of the biggest, once your basic needs are covered, that's one of the biggest rewards that motivates us in our lives. And search and rescue and MRA are great ways to do that. Well, Rod Knopp of Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue Unit in Boise, he has been on the team for 50 years. And so his team sent a really nice, kind of touching, shoot, I was about to say eulogy, but not that. Anyway, a letter that Kaylee read to the group. And before I want you to know this, before this happened, she asked a few of us to guard the doors because his team knew that he might not really want that recognition. We didn't want him to escape and get away from it. But I'm going to read this to you really quickly because it was nice. It's a compilation of comments from IMSARU members. Sometimes people come into your life and you just know you will never be able to replace them. That is Rod. He is an incredible mentor, a voice of reason with a wry wit and sense of humor. His historical information, knowledge, wisdom, and guidance help to keep our focus on our mission statement of search, rescue, and safety education. Rod is our go-to person for all things IMSARU. He He brings a clear perspective when things get foggy, and you can count on him to be upfront and honest. He has more knowledge of how missions work, what resources are needed, and how to get them than the rest of us put together. After many years of field involvement in uncountable missions as a field searcher, a technical rescuer, an EMT, a deputy sheriff, Rod is now most often the in-town coordinator at the other end of the radio. When he is there, the mission team members know that they will have what they need because Rod will arrange it for them. Some of us wonder whether he ever goes home, but his voice on the radio throughout a long night is reassurance that he has our backs. We know that public recognition is not one of Rod's favorite things and suspects that he would have skipped this meeting had he known, but hope he understands how much we respect him and thank him for his selfless contribution all these years. We want to say this out loud to Rod's face, not save it for a eulogy many years in the future. Rod, we want to keep you for at least another 50 years. Barring that, could you please find a way to download all your knowledge into a hard drive for future use? And at that, there was a long-standing ovation, and Rod seemed to be touched and appreciate that, so that was nice. The next item was also a recognition of a rescuer, not quite as pleasant. We had a moment of silence for Mark Miller, who was killed about a week ago in Ouray, Colorado, where he was guiding some ice climbers. He had been on the Weber County team for 4 years, I believe, and we had 3 Weber County representatives there, and other people who knew him. Steve Petty of Davis County had been climbing the week after, or the day or something after Mark fell, and he said it was really a somber mood there, as it was in the room at this moment. So we're sorry for the loss to his wife and for our community. And then it was mentioned we had some MRA store items on the back table. So Dan Lamb's in charge of that, and if you're ever looking for some little gift, a patch, a challenge coin, something like that, don't forget to check out those nice items. Then we went on and voted on the ICAR changes, and which I mentioned earlier. Well, I mentioned some of them earlier, but we don't need to go into too much detail here with changing the spelling in our bylaws, and yeah, I went into enough detail, I think, earlier on that. And we approved the minutes. We moved ICAR earlier because John had to catch a flight out. And then we discussed strategic planning. You know, we had voted the day before to list those, and so then we discussed making committee chairs and all the things to follow up and get those in place. And by the way, I didn't mention, like fundraising, for example, came in with 30-something votes, which is below our top 7. That doesn't mean we're going to stop that, because that's going great, and we appreciate it. We love everything that's going on. That'll continue to grow. So we can put our attention on new things more. Membership report. Welcome to Garfield County, our newest MRA member, or one of our newest MRA members. Also welcome to Chattanooga-Hamilton County Rescue Service. Glad to have you aboard, and they're excited to be there as well. CITCO becomes an ex officio team, but they'll continue to be accredited and do the test because they value that so much. They just had a change in the way they operate, so charging for rescue, working with a fire department or something like that. So there was a change. Crested Butte was reinstated as an associate member team, and Bonneville County, sad to say, they had some major changes in their sheriff department leadership and stuff, and so they've said farewell as an MRA team. Maybe we can bring them back sometime in the future. All right, and then continuing on Sunday meeting, there were several, kind of lumped some of the things, some of the financial items together here. One is dues enforcement, and I've mentioned that the day before that there are a few teams, a small percentage of the teams, that don't, when they pay their dues, they do not send their entire roster into the MRA. And so they end up, like they send a roster with 15, which is the minimum number of rescuers you need to continue being an MRA team, and just pay dues for those. Well, you can imagine that that upsets some other people who felt like, you know, they're paying all their dues. Everyone should share that equally, which I think is a valid point. And so one idea we came up with to help resolve this is if the region chairs can be informed, they get a list of the rosters that get submitted to the MRA, they'll know which teams, whether that's a complete roster or not, and maybe they can contact those teams and we can get that resolved. So there wasn't any more discussion on that, so I assume everyone's satisfied with the idea. We accept the treasurer's report, which went out in the email on the list earlier. SARteams.com, this is something we started many years ago, I don't know, at least 5 years ago, where it was kind of like the Esri, the ArcGIS stuff, where we were planning to get all of our stats put in one place, and that would be not only a service to the individual teams to have a place to organize and work with their statistics, but also for the MRA to harvest all those numbers together. Well, it turns out there are only about 7 teams using that, and we're paying $150 a month, $1,800 a year for our license for this. So the teams who are using it, like Weber, it's not fair to them to just pull the rug out from under them and quit funding this. But we came up with what I think is a good solution, what everyone seemed in favor of, and that is we'll just divide that cost. So it'll be like $25 per team among the teams that are actually using that. And then down the road in the future, we can just continue to reassess how that's working. Because with only a few teams using it, not necessarily something that maybe the whole MRA should fund, especially when other teams are paying even more money for other systems. I mentioned we talked a little bit more about the Moodle system with the helicopter learning and the backcountry safety courses, and we're paying $5,000 a year for that. And it's a great service we're doing, but Moodle, you have to take that training. It's a little complex, and John and Brian was having trouble getting very many people to take the training and help put together the classes. So what we're going to do, our license lasts a couple more weeks. We're not going to renew the license, and in those weeks, we'll get the Moodle transferred over onto our other server where we have our web page, so it's not going to cost us any more money. And then I think we're going to also look into other learning management tools, systems, LMSs, and we can upload the Moodle into that. And then if we have something that's more user-friendly, then we'll be able to crank out a lot more of this training and produce some really great content and some really great service to our teams and the community at large. There was some discussion, with our money saving there, especially, we're making now $21,000, I believe, so far this year from our sponsors that Rocky's been bringing in. So we have a really great stable base money for a nonprofit, but with this more income, let's put it to some use. And so one idea that has been floating around was to make a scholarship for the regions to send people who have never been to a conference before and who have been members of their teams for at least 2 years to help pay their way and encourage them to attend our spring conference in Estes Park. So it's totally up to the regions right now how they're going to divvy that up. So talk to your region chair. But if you're interested in going, we'd love to support you and get you there and help you have a great experience. And then the long-range planning committee, this is about where we're, so this year we're in Estes Park. Next year we're going to be in Port Angeles, Washington. And we saw a brief presentation on that. Looks like a beautiful spot. And then 2017 has not been decided yet. I know they were talking a little bit with Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue Unit about having it in McCall possibly. Of course, there's no commitment there yet. It was just suggested. So, if your team really wants to host that, that would be great. Step up. And by the way, it sounds like we're leaning more and more toward MRA support so that if something happens, we kind of protect the host teams from losing a lot of their money. So it's a much more supportive thing, I think, than what we used to be. As a little bit of a concern. 2018, Brian has committed to have it somewhere over on the East Coast. We're not sure which team that'll be. And then 2019, we'll be back in Portland for the MRA's 60th anniversary. All right. Throughout the week, planning for this webinar, I asked around, why do you come to these meetings? What do you get out of it? And what do you get out of MRA membership in general? And here are some of the answers. So Allison Sheets said credibility, and that's a theme that I just heard over and over again. Like with John Petter's comment, he says, if you don't have the patch, I don't trust you. You know, you get a mutual aid thing. If he sees the patch, he knows what you can do. He knows what you're capable of. Work together, great. If not, he has no idea, right? I think a lot of us feel the exact same way. Antonio Arizo says, you know which teams you'll put in rugged terrain versus flatland. Which ones do you put in the, and he told me a story, and actually I heard a couple of stories about this, about there was some place with some kind of dicey terrain, and they put MRA teams because they knew they could handle it. The other ones, it's just an unknown quantity. Art Fortini says he appreciates the greater community awareness. Otherwise, you're like a fish that doesn't know what's in water. You know, if you're a member of your search and rescue team, that's awesome. But if you start meeting and rubbing shoulders with teams around you and around the country and around the world, it gives you a wider perspective that's really neat. And Dan Land says, people here are genuinely good people. I enjoy it. And that's true. I think we all feel the same. Our president, Dave, says, had several things to say. Like I said before, you get out what you put in. Loves the sense of community. He says, I don't care how good of a team you are, you're struggling with something, and other teams will have ideas for that. He pointed out that no single team developed all the rescue skills, so it's great to be sharing those around. And the value of accreditation to local sheriff authority is invaluable. Every team says they're a better team for it. And he pointed out how Washington region, until a few years ago, they didn't do the peer review. They had their own reaccreditation system. But when they began it, they instantly realized the value of that. So that's great. And I talked to a couple of people who are first-timers here at the conference. Gerald Osuna said he likes Utah's 3.2 beer, sarcastically, but then he continued and said, he said it's amazing to see the change, because their team just went through their first evaluation. He says it makes the team stronger. Evaluator feedback is really valuable. We got the fullest of our strengths. The whole team walked away from the research excited about the value. And I totally feel the same. I think we pretty much all do. Terry Hyatt, he's been a member of, I think, in the Washington region, I think, for 10 years, but it was his first time he came to a meeting. He says it's a great opportunity to share between teams, network, meet people from other regions, see how they do business differently. So see some of those themes that just keep carrying through about the value. So that pretty much finishes up our webinar today, which is brought to you by the Mountain Rescue Association and Pigeon Mountain Industries and this committee, webinar training committee. And by the way, if you have something to share with us, if some professional correlation to whatever you're presenting, it's totally legit to go ahead and give yourself a little plug. It may increase your own credibility and improve the webinar even. By the way, our past webinars and this one will soon be available at these web addresses. And for me, talking about, I introduced this talking about how rescuers tend to not really blow their own horn that much, and we just kind of go about doing the amazing things that we do, and people rarely really know. So I'm just going to plug this book I wrote after my first 12 years on my busy team, 75 Search and Rescue Stories, an insider's view of survival, death, and volunteer heroes who tip the balance when things fall apart. It not only tells some pretty good rescue stories, but also talks about, the costs, the rewards, the challenges that we all deal with in a way that I think that many of you could probably identify with. And if you want someone else who's not in SAR to understand it, or someone who's thinking of joining the team, that's been a good resource for them to really get an insider's view of that. And you can order that from Amazon at bit.ly/rescue stories. So to close, what can you teach us? What can you do for us? How can you contribute to the MRA? If you get involved, I think you'll find it a very rewarding experience. So contact me if you've got a webinar topic for us, or contact your region chair or any of the other leaders about opportunities to get involved with committees. We would love to have you join our community and receive the camaraderie and the connection and the networking and whatever contributions you can bring to us would be very welcome. So join us. Until you do, you don't know what you're missing. And that's it. So Jessica, I'll turn it back to you in case there are any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Shaun, and thank you also for the award or the president status that we received. We really appreciate that, and we really have enjoyed working with the MRA, and it's something that we're happy to do. It's been really a great experience for us as well.
Thanks, Jessica. You're great partners. I know several of your employees are MRA team members and everything. And I just want you to know this was not my idea. This came from Dave and Rocky because they saw what you're doing, and they're just really grateful.
Well, awesome. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And there are a few questions, but if you have any additional questions or you have any that you haven't gotten in yet, you can type them in the chat/questions area of your control panel. And I'm going to actually switch the screen over so that you can see that information. Let's see. Regarding the meeting, was there any discussion regarding the peak rescue rope class being offered for MRA members?
Oh, yes, there were. Let me scroll back up. That's one item I skipped. So it was mentioned that they had donated some classes, and people just snapped them up, and they really enjoyed them. And there was a little discussion, like someone thought, I haven't found my notes, so I'm just going from memory. Someone thought, lifeguards or something, what do they do? But they found out the lifeguards do a lot of cliff rescues as well. And I bet that's in the minutes that went out on the lister. So if you're not on the MRA lister, if you didn't get that, feel free to email me, and I will look that up and send it to you specifically. But I'll just state my perception of what's going on there is like Peak Rescue is a great supporter of us, and we really appreciate them, and that they do a great job.
Okay, and then the next one is more of a comment than a question, but it is perhaps if these national opportunities occur, we can offer each region a chance to send people, not just first come, first serve, and this would ensure a diverse class.
And I wonder if that's about the scholarship thing, and if it is, then each region chair is going to kind of have to figure out how to manage sending that. But I agree. I think they should choose people who their team says, this is a great team member, they're doing a great job, they're invested, we really love to have them involved with the MRA and have them get the benefit. They're going to bring the training back. So yeah, so I would say choose your best people that are deserving and send them over. And by the way, one comment about the $1,000 per region, there's a few comments that said that's not exactly equitable because like Rocky Mountain region, they're really close now, so they can send more people, whereas Alaska, that might cover airfare and, for maybe even one person and stuff. So maybe next year we can fine tune it and make it more complex, but we were just aiming for simplicity to start with.
Okay, great. And those are the only comments we have, or comments or questions we have right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. If you have any last minute, you can type them into your chat/questions area of your control panel, and we will get to them before we end the presentation. If you have further questions after the presentation is over, you can email Shaun at the email shown on the screen, shaunroundy@gmail.com. The MRA webinar series hosts webinars frequently, so keep an eye on the MRA and PMI websites for future dates and topics. And you can also get information and updates from both PMI and MRA at Facebook and Twitter, and the ways to access those are shown at the bottom of your screen. So I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and we hope that it was helpful and informative, and thank you very much, Shaun, for presenting it. We really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thanks to you too, Jessica.
Yep, everyone have a great day.